All right, kiddos, tonight we are reviewing a new wing. My buddy Shane has an APCO F1 22 meter. I fly a Warp 2 22 meter and a Drift Air 22. So he wanted me to give him my impressions on how similar, not similar, whatever. So let's go.
All right, we'll start with our gratuitous crotch shot. We will fiddle with our risers and the camera for a bit. Risers are pretty straightforward, no big surprises, nothing in the way, nothing too crazy. And then a quick, powerful turtle stance to run up our motor. Okay, so let's start with the launch. Seems like a decent place to start, yeah. We had 2 or 3 mile-an-hour winds that night, nothing too crazy. You see the wing come straight up, right overhead. I did have to run quite a bit. Again, not a lot of wind, and I'm kind of on the higher end of the weight range. I believe this 22 meter goes up to like 165 kilos all up, and I'm probably about 140, maybe 135, something like that. So get in the air, get some altitude, get my camera, cram it under my cheeks, really cram it into the tank to make sure it's not coming out, and then we're off and running. Okay, so today's goal is to really put it through its paces and do all sorts of things, but we'll just start out with easy turns. I want to make sure I don't get ahead of myself. I really don't know how much energy this wing builds, so we just give it a right, give it a left, piece of cake, and then you'll see I try to, I guess maybe porpoise a little bit, where you power up, then let it off, power up, let it off, just to see how much it surges over top. And there's a little bit there, but nothing too crazy at all. Again, whether it's the roll left to right or the pitch front to back, it really comes back to center pretty quick. And then we get to frolic with Bart for a few minutes. All right, enough with the shenanigans. Let's start to throw it around a little bit. You'll see this is really kind of like my first little acro run, and that's probably a bigger word than it deserves. We're really going to try to just chain together 4 or 5 wing overs and see what sort of energy it builds. Does it want to roll? Does it want to come back to center? Again, I don't really know. I haven't flown a lot of APCO, so just a couple rights and then lefts, taking it easy but getting a little bit more aggressive. So I'm up to about maybe 90 degrees, maybe 100 degrees from the bottom. I think towards the end I get maybe a little bit more than that. But again, I'm taking it real easy just to see how quickly it descends and how it handles. And honestly, I expected it to roll faster, probably based on the other wings that I fly, but it didn't. It kind of brings you back to center almost every single time. And since I'm down low and I caught up to Graham, I figured I'd go play in the creek for a little bit. Usually I get a little deeper, might drag it a little bit, but new wing, don't really know exactly what to expect. So just putz around, get back out of the drink, and then let's go get some more altitude. Okay, my goal for the second run was just to see just how aggressive I had to dig into it to get over the top. Or at least, really above the wing for a true wing over. And it's quite a bit. Again, it will build energy and you need to know how to manage it to play at this level, but it was not aggressive. It wasn't shaky, slippery, it was just solid the whole time. And if anything, it tried to slow me down and kill that energy pretty naturally. Like, I really did not have to do a ton to make it stop. Whereas like on my Warp 2, if you start building that energy, you have to counteract it to get it to stop. Same with a free ride, same with a carve, things like that. Okay, here you see I start to play around with my trims a little bit just to see how challenging it was to let them out. And it's not. It's actually very smooth, very easy. It does have that advantage over some of the Dudex I fly. My RPM 2 has roller trims on it, and so they're super easy. But man, the Dudex are just brutal sometimes trying to let them out. And I would say this was a very happy medium. You just click the keeper, let it out a bit, balance it, piece of cake. And of course, now that I'm trimmed out, I'm going to start using my tip toggles. And this is actually one of the highlights for me of this wing. There are a lot of highlights, but this is one of them I liked a lot. The tip steer or the tip toggles are really hidden away. They're high up, you do have to go reach for them, but they're very, very comfortable. It's a nice toggle to hold. You can fit 2 or 3 fingers on there. It's not a very heavy pull, and they're pretty dynamic. So a little bit of pull goes a long way. And I didn't use speed bar on this video. I did have about a 5-minute flight the other night on the same wing, just real quickly to test the speed bar while I had a headwind. And it was great. Penetrated the wind very, very nicely. The tip steer was really, really comfortable to use. Good things, all good things when it comes to tip steer on this wing. Okay, so here's another really valuable thing that I think people will like about this wing. You know, we've been talking about acro and throwing around and all that kind of stuff, and I don't know that that's really the target market for this wing. If anything, I'm guessing this is much more kind of a cross-country wing. I haven't looked it up. I haven't looked at the marketing to see like what its specialty is supposed to be. But, I mean, look at me flying here. I am hands-off, you know, full throttle or, you know, maybe 3/4. There is zero pitch. And again, I'm pretty heavily loaded on this. And if I were doing this on my drift air, if I were doing this on the warp, there's going to be a significant amount of penduluming, which it's not bad. You can work it out. But with this one, I didn't have to touch anything. It is rock solid. So if you're the kind of pilot who's looking for just solid cross country, set it and forget it, this really feels like it could be that wing. And then in those times when you want to throw it around a bit, then you definitely can. But I was really impressed with how heavy I am and how small this wing is and how much it felt like I was just on rails with zero input to the brake to stay flat and level. So I've been floating around hands off for a while, just enjoying a beautiful night. But I've got the altitude I want. We're going to do one more acro run before bringing it into land. And I wanted to see, like, okay, we know it's a little conservative compared to what I'm used to, but how aggressive do I have to get to throw this around? And the answer is pretty aggressive. It will build energy, and if you don't know how to manage it, that's going to be a problem. But I do really feel like this wing is kind of a nice stepping stone for someone who may never want to do major wing overs, but you want to get a nice carve going, you want to do, you know, modest wing overs. This is a really nice wing because it will build the energy, and then it naturally wants to take it back out and assist you with that. It can kind of help to make up for, you know, not being an advanced pilot. I think it's kind of a nice stepping stone for folks. But again, be cautious. Don't fly outside of your skill set. But I do think it could suit someone's needs really, really nicely in that regard. So I never did an official speed test, but here's some video footage to show you. Again, later in the night, we essentially had nil wind at ground level. So, you know, we're scooting along pretty well here. I'm guessing, I don't know, 35 to 40, maybe something like that. And I'm half trimmed out. It scoots pretty well. And again, nice and level, no jitters, like just solid. All the way. Really, really nice. Okay, so here's the summary. Here are my thoughts on this wing. A couple things that I really liked. This wing is on rails. It is locked in the whole time. Now, I had a really smooth night, and I probably need to take it up on a choppy night to see what that feels like. But honestly, I really don't feel that it would be that much different. If you want to throw it around, you put the inputs in and it'll go, but it settles right back in, and it's got very great, reasonable speed for a 22-meter wing. I also like the tip toggles. I like the trim system. It was very easy to use, very intuitive. And the launch and the landing both were very consistent, very reliable. I've since done a couple of launches on it, and it just comes up not nearly as fast as some of my other 22-meter wings. Like when it comes up, you don't necessarily have to check it hard like it's gonna overfly you on launch. Landing, you know, it comes in a little quick, but you know, you trim out a bit and you've got more, you know, flare authority, and I think it's piece cake. So there are only a few negatives to it. For me and my flying style, I would like for it to throw around more. But if it were more agile, it would start to pendulum more and it wouldn't be as solid. So I don't really know that I can say that's a negative. That's just kind of a preference. The only other negative is when I do wingovers in acro, I reach up through my brake toggles and I grab the brakes above, and the placement of the magnets make it such that it kind of hurts my fingers. That's me just kind of whining, and that's specific to me, right? That's how I hold and grip my brake toggles. Probably not going to be an issue for most people, especially if they're not thrown around. But on the whole, I think this is a fantastic wing. I was really, really pleasantly surprised, and I've flown a couple APCOs, and I've never had any problems or issues with them. They've just never spoken to me. But I think this is a great wing. If I didn't already have some wings that did similar things, I'd probably really, really consider it. So on the whole, good stuff. Would recommend.